This is a woman on a mission. She is dead set on getting rid of whoever's in that house or burning that house down, period.
There's so much that we don't know. What could happen to a person that would make them want to do such a thing?
The home quickly bursts into flames. And as the Del City Fire Department races to the scene, the property owner, Chris Bottoms, who's nearly 20 miles away at the time, learns about the blaze from a heartbreaking phone call.
And I got the call a little bit before 3, and my ex-wife, Christine, called, and she said the house is on fire. I became pretty emotional.
For the 57-year-old Army veteran, the fire is a devastating blow.
You know, that's the home that I took care of both my parents, my mother and father in. And it was also where we took care of my sister till the day she died. They all passed in that home. My brother, he was pretty quick about coming straight to me. We went directly to my property. As we were pulling up, it was still smoldering. The firemen had just put the fire out, and they were just starting to put out the crime tape. There's not one part of the home that was not touched. There was nothing that I felt could be recovered. It was a total loss from the beginning.
And as he looks at the smoldering wreckage, Chris is also confronted with a disturbing realization.
My brother felt that the insurance company was going to have questions about how the fire started. And he said, your main reason for being here is you're going to have an alibi.
The brother said, if it looks like it was arson, Chris, you're going to be a suspect. So he had a lot of trouble. It was traumatizing. This man was cut to his core.
The thought that he might be considered the prime suspect in the destruction of his family's home is overwhelming, especially when a local news crew arrives to cover the story.
Del City Fire responded to a fully engulfed house on Becker Place.
The reporter interviews neighbor Annie Durham.
All I know, I was in the house and I saw smoke.
But there's a huge catch. This neighbor is the same woman caught on the shocking video.
She calmly shoots into the house and throws a big flame into the house and then puts on a performance. And she does not seem remorseful. In fact, she seems proud. With her body language, she has her chest puffed out and her head held high. So Annie seems pretty confident that they're gonna buy her story.
This woman is just standing there giving her eyewitness account, saying that she doesn't know what happened. And you never in your mind think that the innocent witness speaking is actually the villain.
I lost souvenirs, family pictures, everything. I don't have childhood pictures anymore. And my 33 years of marriage and travel with my own family, just gone.
And worse, he fears police will think he's a suspect himself, burning his unoccupied and neglected home for an insurance payout.
I was in financial difficulty. I was not making payments on the home, and basically the home was in disrepair at that time.
Sometimes it's hard for people to let go of property, even though they know that it's dilapidated, because they have an emotional bond to it. And then he has this added stress and pressure thinking, what if they think it's me? I mean, that's gotta cause him emotional turmoil.
But then, a stunning discovery changes everything. The real arsonist, Chris's neighbor, Annie Durham, is caught on her own surveillance camera.
It was actually my ex-wife that pointed out to the fire marshal, you know, Mrs. Durham's got a security system, maybe it caught how the fire started. And she initially refused to give the footage, but she knew that they were just waiting on a warrant.
She tried to say no, but eventually they convinced her to let them see this footage.
My understanding is she thought she had deleted it, but it was just password protected and they had to crack the password. So computer forensic specialists were able to recover the footprint and give us the video that we have showing that what she did.
And as the video comes to light, so does the long history of strife between these two neighbors.
The feud between myself and Ann Durham went on for about 5 years, and it wasn't really bad when my family was there. She complained about trees in the yard, and anybody that blocked her view of what her cameras were able to record, she complained.
But as the years pass by, tensions begin to boil over.
After my divorce, that's when things started to get bad. So I decided to rent rooms to individuals, and unfortunately, instead of paying in money, they'd come with their drugs.
At the time, the Army veteran admits that he too got lost in the downward spiral of drug addiction, allowing his home to become a den for other drug users.
It was never a drug house with my family there. And unfortunately, when I moved these individuals into my home, it evolved into that.
Chris's life and his home begin to fall into ruin. And Annie Durham isn't happy about the dangerous new element next door.
The fire chief I talked to said he thought it might be he said this is an abandoned house, so it might be some vagrants or something.
Well, actually, there's been drug addicts living there, running in and out.
As she was getting more protective of her property. So in a 5-month period, I would say that Mrs. Durham called the police 25 times on my home. And I called twice on her. And then the home was condemned in 2017. Therefore, I was not allowed to be there. They never allowed me to go back in my home.
When the home is condemned, Chris is forced to move out and clean up his act.
I spent 28 days at Serenity House, which is basically where veterans will go to receive help. I'm free of drugs now, and I don't want to go back to doing drugs.
But there are still big problems at the now abandoned house he left behind.
Even after the water's cut off, the electricity's cut off, people were still breaking into the home. I even turned in a couple of people when I caught them in the home, and the police arrested them and gave them trespassing tickets.
The constant trespassing is what pushes Annie Durham to her breaking point, and she decides to take matters into her own hands.
I believe that somebody was in the home, began antagonizing her and getting her riled up enough to do what she did.
This was likely a form of social vigilantism. Social vigilantes truly believe that they're acting on behalf of society. And it's quite possible that she felt that, you know what, I have to get rid of this house because there are probably people who are squatting there, people who are using drugs there. You know, it's dangerous for the neighborhood. I'm actually doing a good thing here.
I do feel some empathy for her. It's very difficult to live with bad neighbors, and Chris was worse than a bad neighbor. But while we can understand that that must have been living hell for Annie, what she chose to do with it, that is the #1 issue. There's a lot of things you can do before you get to the point where you're shooting into a home and throwing firebombs into the home.
1 week after setting the fire, Annie Durham is arrested and charged with second-degree arson and discharging a firearm into a dwelling. She is currently out on bail and awaiting trial.